Shalom, welcome to Tactically Torah. I am Heath Hayes. Today is day 73 of Read the Bible in a Year. And we're in Joshua chapter 9, reading chapters 9 through 12. So let's get started. Turn that off real quick. Sorry. And it came to be when all the sovereigns who were beyond the Jordan, in the hills and in the low country, and in all the coasts of the great sea toward Lebanon, the Hittite and the Amorite and the Canaanite and the Perizzite and the Hivite and the Jebusite heard, they gathered together to fight with Yehoshua and Israel with one accord. And the inhabitants of Gabon heard that heard what Yehoshua had done to Jericho and Ai, and they acted slyly and went and pretended to be envoys, and took old sacks on their donkeys, old wineskins, torn and mended, and old patched sandals on their feet, and old garments on themselves, and all the bread of their provision was dry. It was crumbs. And they went to Yehoshua, to the camp at Gilgal, and said to him, to the men of Israel, we have come from a far land, and now make a covenant with us. But the men of Israel said to the Hivites, it could be that you dwell in our midst, so how would we make a covenant with you? And they said to Yehoshua, we are your servants. And Yehoshua said to them, who are you, and where do you come from? So they said to him, from a land very, very far off. Your servants have come because of the name of Yahweh your Elohim. For we have heard the report of him and all that he did in Mitzrayim and all that he had done to the two sovereigns of the Amorites who were beyond the Jordan, to Sihon, sovereign of Heshbon, and Og, sovereign of Bashan, who was at Ashtaroth. So our elders and all the inhabitants of our land spoke to us, saying, take food with you for your journey, and go meet them, and say to them, we are your servants, and now make a covenant with us. This bread of ours we took hot for our provision from the houses on the day that we left to come to you, but now see it is dry and it is crummy. And these wineskins which we filled were new, and see they are torn. And these our garments and our sandals have become old because of the very long journey. And the men of Israel took some of their food, but they did not ask the mouth of Yahweh. And Yahweh made peace with them, and made a covenant with them, to let them live. And the rulers of the congregation swore to them. And it came to be at the end of 3 days, after they had made a covenant with them, that they heard that they were neighbors who dwelt near them. And the children of Israel set out and came to their cities on the 3rd day. Now their cities were Gabon, Kephurah, and Be'eroth, and Kiriath Yearim. But the children of Israel did not strike them, because the rulers of the congregation had sworn to them by Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and all the congregation grumbled against the rulers. But all the rulers said to all the congregation, we have sworn to them by Yahweh Elohim of Israel, and we are unable to touch them now. Let us do this to them. We shall keep them alive, lest wrath be upon us because of the oath which we swore to them. And the rulers said to them, let them live, but let them be woodcutters and drawers of water for all the congregation, as the rulers had promised them. Then Yehoshua called for them and spoke to them, saying, why have you deceived us, saying, we are very far from you, yet you are dwelling in our midst? And now you are cursed, and you shall not cease from being slaves and woodcutters and drawers of water for the house of my Elohim. And they answered Yehoshua and said, your servants were clearly told that Yahweh your Elohim commanded his servant Moshe to give you all the land and to destroy all the inhabitants of the land from before you. So we were very much afraid for our lives because of you, and have done this deed. And now, see, we are in your hands. Do with us as it seems good and right to do to us. And he did so to them, and delivered them out of the hand of the children of Israel, and they did not kill them. And that day Yehoshua made them woodcutters and drawers of water for the congregation and for the slaughter place of Yahweh, even to this day at the place he should choose. Chapter 10. And it came to be when Adoni-Sedek, sovereign of Yerushalayim, heard that Yehoshua had captured Ai and put it under the ban, that he had done to Ai and its sovereign, as he had done to Jericho and its sovereign, and that the inhabitants of Gabon had made peace with Israel and were in their midst, that they feared greatly because Gabon was a great city, as one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men were mighty. And Adoni-Sedek, sovereign of Yerushalayim, sent to Hoam, sovereign of Hebron, and Param, sovereign of Yarmuth, and Yaphia, there it is, sovereign of Lachish, and Debir, sovereign of Eglon, saying, Come up to me, help me, and let us strike Gabon, for it has made peace with Yehoshua and with the children of Israel. So the 5 sovereigns of the Amorites, and the sovereign of Yerushalayim, the sovereign of Hebron, and the sovereign of Yarmuth, and the sovereign of Lachish, the sovereign of Eglon, gathered together and went up, they and all their armies, and camped before Gibon and fought against them. And the men of Gibon sent to Yehoshua at the camp at Gilgal, saying, Do not withdraw your hand from your servants. Come up to us quickly and save us and help us, for all the sovereigns of the Amorites who dwell in the mountains have assembled against us. And Yehoshua went up from Gilgal, he and the soldiers with them, and all the mighty brave men. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, Do not fear them, for I have given them into your hand. Not one of them does stand before you. So then Yehoshua came upon them suddenly, having gone up all night from Gilgal, and Yahweh threw them into confusion before Israel, and they struck them with great slaughter at Gibon, and pursued them along the way that goes to Beth Horon, and struck them as far as Azekah and Makkedah. And it came to be, as they fled before Israel, that they were on the descent of Beth Horon, that Yahweh threw down large hailstones from the heavens on them as far as Azekah, and they died. There were more who died from the hailstones than those whom the sons of Israel had killed with the sword. Then Yehoshua spoke to Yahweh in the day when Yahweh gave the Amorites over to the children of Israel, and he said before the eyes of Israel, Sun, stand still over Gabon, and moon in the valley of Ayalon. So the sun stood still, and the moon stopped, till the nation avenged itself upon their enemies. Is this not written in the book of Yashar? Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens. Interesting. Biblically endorsed, the book of Jasher. Cool thought there. And for any of you here who are curious, that is Joshua chapter 10, verse 13. Is this not written in the book of Jasher, that Yahweh made the sun stand still at the word of Joshua? Thus the sun stopped in the midst of the heavens, and did not hasten to go down for an entire day. And there has been no day like that before it or after it, that Yahweh listened to the voice of a man, because Yahweh fought for Israel. So Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. Now these 5 sovereigns had fled and hidden themselves in the cave at Makkedah. And it was reported that Yehoshua was saying, 5 sovereigns have been found hidden in the cave at Makkedah. And Yehoshua said, Roll large stones against the mouth of the cave and set by it to guard them. And you, do not stand still, but pursue your enemies, and you shall smite them in the rear. You do not allow them to enter their cities, for Yahweh your Elohim has given them into your hand. And it came to be when Yehoshua and the children of Israel had ended striking them with a very great slaughter, till they had finished, but those who escaped went into the walled cities, that all the people returned to camp in Yehoshua at Makkedah in peace. No one moved his tongue against any of the sons of Israel. And Yehoshua said, Open the mouth of the cave, and bring out those 5 sovereigns to me from the cave. And they did so, and brought those 5 sovereigns to him from the cave, and the sovereigns of Yerushalayim, the sovereign of Hebron, the sovereign of Yarmuth, the sovereign of Lachish, the sovereign of Eglon. And it came to be when they brought out those sovereigns to Yehoshua, that Yehoshua called for all the men of Israel and said to the chiefs of the men of battle who went with him, Come near and put your feet on the necks of these sovereigns. And they drew near and put their feet on their necks. Then Yehoshua said to them, Do not be afraid nor be discouraged. Be strong and courageous, for this is what Yahweh is doing to all of your enemies who you are fighting. And afterward, Yehoshua struck them and killed them and hanged them on 5 trees, and they were hanging on the trees until evening. And it came to be at the time of the going down of the sun, that Yehoshua commanded, and they took them down from the trees and threw them into the cave where they had been hidden, and laid large stones against the cave's mouth to this day. And on that day Yehoshua captured Makkedah, and he struck it with the edge of the sword, and he put its sovereign under the ban, them and all the people who were in it. He left no survivor, and he did to the sovereign of Makkedah as he had done to the sovereigns of Jericho. Then Yehoshua passed over, and all Israel with him, from Makkedah to Libnah, and they fought against Libnah. And Yahweh also gave it and its sovereign into the hand of Israel, and he struck it and all the people who were in it with the edge of the sword. He left no survivor in it. And he did to its sovereign as he had done to the sovereign of Jericho. Then Yehoshua passed over, and all Israel with him, from Libnah to Lachish, and encamped against it and fought against it. And Yahweh gave Lachish into the hand of Israel, who captured it on the second day, and struck it and all the people who were in it with the sword, according to all that he had done to Libnah. Then Horam, sovereign of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Yehoshua struck him and his people until he left him no survivor. Then Yehoshua passed over, and all of Israel with him, from Lachish to Eglon, and they encamped against it and fought against it and captured it on that day, and struck it with the edge of the sword. And all the beings who were in it he put under the ban that day, according to all that he had done to Lachish. Then Yehoshua went up, and all Israel with him, from Eglon and Hebron, and they fought against it, and captured it, and struck it with the edge of the sword, and its sovereign, and all its cities, and all the people who were in it. He left no survivor, according to all that he had done to Eglon, and put it and all the people who were in it under the ban. Then Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to Debir, and fought against it, and captured it and its sovereign and all the cities, and they struck them with the edge of the sword, and put the people who were in it under the ban. He left no survivor. As he had done to Hebron, so he did to Debir and its sovereign, as he had done to Libnah and its sovereign. Thus Yehoshua struck all the land, the mountain country, the south and the low country, and the wilderness slopes, and all the sovereigns. He left no survivor, and put all the breath, and put all that breathed under the ban, as Yahweh Elohim of Israel had commanded. And Yehoshua struck them from Kadesh Barnea as far as Azah, and all the land of Goshen, even as far as Gibeon. And Yehoshua captured all these sovereigns in their land at one time, because Yahweh Elohim of Israel fought for Israel. And Yehoshua returned, and all Israel with him, to the camp at Gilgal. Awesome. Chapter 11. And it came to be when Jabin, sovereign of Hatzor, heard that he had sent Jobab, sovereign of Medan, to the sovereign of Shimron, and to the sovereign of Akshaph, and to the sovereigns who were from the north in the mountains and in the desert plain, south of Kinneroth, and in the low country and in the heights of Dor in the west, the Canaanites in the east and in the west, and the Amorite and the Hittite and the Perizzite and the Jebusite in the mountains, and the Hivite below Hermon in the land of Mitzpah. And they went out, and they and all their armies with them, as many people, as numerous as the sand on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. And all these the sovereigns met together, and they came and camped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And Yahweh said to Yehoshua, do not be afraid of their presence, for tomorrow about this time I am giving all of them over to Israel, slain. Hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire. Wow. And Yehoshua and all the soldiers with him came against them suddenly by the waters of Merom, and they fell on them. And Yahweh gave them into the hand of Israel, and they struck them and pursued them to Great Sidon and to Misrephoth Mayim, and to the valley of Mitzpeh eastward. And they struck them until no survivor was left to them. And Yehoshua did to them as Yahweh said to him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Yehoshua turned back at that time and captured Hatzor and struck its sovereign with the sword. For Hatzor was formerly the head of all those reigns. Oh, okay. He was the king of kings. Verse 11. And they struck all the beings who were in it in the edge of the sword, putting them under the ban, and he did not leave anyone breathing. Then he burned Hatzor with fire. And Yehoshua captured all the cities of those sovereigns and all their sovereigns, and he struck them with the edge of the sword and put them under the ban, as Moshe the servant of Yahweh commanded. However, Israel did not burn any cities that stood on their mounds, but Yehoshua burned only Hatzor, and all the spoil of these cities and the livestock and the children of Israel took as booty for themselves. But they struck every man with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave anyone breathing. As Yahweh commanded Moshe his servant, so Moshe commanded Yehoshua, and so Yehoshua did. He did not turn aside a word of all that Yahweh had commanded Moshe. Thus Yehoshua took all this land, the mountain country, and all the south, and all the land of Goshen, and the low country, and the desert plain, and the mountains of Israel, and its lowlands, from Mount Halak. It goes up to Seir, and as far as Baal Gad, in the valley of Lebanon, below Mount Hermon. And he captured all the sovereigns and struck them and killed them. Yehoshua fought with all those sovereigns for a long time. There was not a city that made peace with the children of Israel except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. All the others they took in battle. For it was of Yahweh to strengthen their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle in order to put them under the ban, so that they might have no favor, but that he might annihilate them, as Yahweh had commanded Moshe. And at that time Yehoshua came and cut off the Anakim from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and all the mountains of Yehuda, or Judah. And from the mountains of Israel, Yehoshua put them with their cities under the ban. There were none of the Anakim left in the land of the children of Israel. Only in Azah, in Gath, and in Ashdod some remained. Thus Yehoshua took the entire land according to all that Yahweh had said to Moshe, and Yehoshua gave it as an inheritance to Israel according to their divisions by their tribes, and the land rested from fighting.
Sorry.
It's early, guys. Anyways, chapter 12. Wow, 21 minutes here. Yeah, these chapters are a little bit longer. Chapter 12, last leg, fourth quarter. And these were the sovereigns of the land whom the children of Israel struck, and whose land they possessed beyond the Jordan, towards the sun rising from the Wadi Arnon to the Mount Hermon, and all the desert plain eastward. Sihon, sovereign of the Amorites, who were dwelt in Heshbon, ruling from Aroer, which is on the bank of the Wadi Arnon, from the middle of that wadi, and half Gilad, even as far as the Wadi Yabok, the border of the children of Ammon, and the desert plain from the sea of Kinneroth eastward as far as the sea of Arabah, the salt sea, the way to Beth Yeshimoth, and southward below the slopes of Pisgah, and the border of Og, sovereign of Bashan, who was of the remnant of the Rephaites, who dwelt at Ashtaroth and Edrei, and ruled in Mount Hermon, and in Salcah, and in Bashan, as far as the border of the Geshurites and the Maacathites, and half Gilad, as far as the border of Sihon, sovereign of Heshbon. Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, and the children of Israel had stricken them, and Moshe, the servant of Yahweh, had given it as a possession of the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the tribe of Manasseh. And these are the sovereigns of the land which Yehoshua and the children of Israel struck beyond the Jordan, on the west from Baal-Gad and the valley of Lebanon as far as Mount Halak, that goes up to Seir, which Yehoshua gave to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions in the mountain country, and in the low country, and in the desert plain, and in the slopes, and in the wilderness, and in the south, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, the sovereign of Jericho, one, the sovereign of Ai, which is beside Bethel, one, the sovereign of Jerusalem, one, the sovereign of Hebron, one, the sovereign of Yarmuth, one, the sovereign of Lachish, one, the sovereign of Eglon, one, the sovereign of Gezir, one, the sovereign of Debir, one, the sovereign of Geder, one, the sovereign of Hormah, one, the sovereign of Arad, one, the sovereign of Libnah, one, the sovereign of Adullam, one, the sovereign of Makkedah, one, the sovereign of Beth El, one, the sovereign of Tappuah, one, the sovereign of Hepher, one, the sovereign of Ephek, one, the sovereign of Sharon, 1. The sovereign of Madon, 1. The sovereign of Hatzor, 1. The sovereign of Shimron Meron, 1. The sovereign of Aksoph, 1. The sovereign of Ta'anak, 1. The sovereign of Megiddo, 1. The sovereign of Kadesh, 1. The sovereign of Yokneam in Carmel, 1. The sovereign of Dor in the heights of Dor, 1. The sovereign of the nations of Gilgal, 1. The sovereign of Tirzah, 1. 31 sovereigns in all. 31 nations they took out. All right, that's chapter 12. That's chapters 9 through 12 in the book of Joshua. Shalom.